Mitch Rapp was on top of the world. He and his girlfriend, Katrina Harper, had taken off to Spain for a sunny getaway. The beaches were perfect, the weather was just right, and for Mitch, it wasn't just another vacation. It was the moment he'd been planning for. While Katrina was out enjoying the waves, he had something bigger on his mind. Standing there on the sand, Mitch pulled out a small box with a ring inside. His heart was racing, but he knew this was the right time. Dropping down to one knee, he asked Katrina to marry him, telling her straight up how much she meant to him. Katrina's face lit up with joy, and without hesitation, she said yes. But life has a cruel way of flipping the script. Just a few minutes later, Mitch headed toward the bar to grab them some drinks. That's when the world shattered. Loud cracks of gunfire ripped through the air, and people started screaming as chaos exploded across the beach. Terrorists stormed in, spraying bullets into the crowd. Mitch immediately ran back toward Katrina, determined to reach her. A bullet tore into his leg, but he kept going, dragging himself through the sand, shouting her name over and over. Before he could reach her, one of the gunmen spotted her. Right in front of Mitch's eyes, Katrina was gunned down mercilessly. He could do nothing but watch the love of his life collapse lifelessly on the beach. Fast forward a year and a half, Mitch was no longer the happy, easygoing guy he used to be. His entire life had changed. Grief and anger had taken root inside him, twisting into a thirst for revenge. He wasn't going to just sit back and mourn. Instead, he made it his mission to find and kill the people responsible for taking Katrina from him. He built an online persona, pretending to be a hardcore extremist in radical chat rooms and forums, waiting for an opportunity to infiltrate the same terrorist networks that had destroyed his life. At the same time, Mitch pushed his body to its limits. He trained obsessively in martial arts, but his temper often got the better of him, leading to him being thrown out of multiple gyms after brutalizing his sparring partners. His time at the shooting range wasn't much different. While others practiced with discipline, Mitch went rogue, unloading full auto fire as he marched downrange, practically screaming his rage with every pull of the trigger. He didn't realize that his reckless behavior had already drawn the attention of people far bigger than him. The CIA had eyes on him. One night, Mitch's persistence finally paid off. He got the message he'd been waiting for, an invitation to meet the very terrorists he had been trying to reach. What he didn't know was that CIA Deputy Director Irene Kennedy was already monitoring everything. Mitch made his way to Libya, where masked men picked him up and brought him to a hidden compound. They frisked him, searched his things, even took his sunglasses, unaware that Mitch had secretly tucked a blade inside. Blindfolded, he was dragged deep into their base. And then, fate placed him face to face with the man who had killed Katrina, Al-Mansour, the leader of the group. Rage boiled inside Mitch as the two exchanged words. He started to free himself, ready to strike. But before he could, chaos erupted. A team of special forces stormed the compound, spraying bullets and taking out the terrorists. In the middle of the bloodbath, Al-Mansour was shot down. For Mitch, that wasn't good enough. Seeing his enemy dead without being the one to deliver the final blow sent him into a frenzy. He leapt onto Al-Mansour's body, stabbing his chest again and again with the hidden blade, screaming in fury until soldiers pulled him off. Afterward, Mitch was taken into CIA custody. For a full month, they debriefed him, digging into his background, his psychology, even his painful past losing his parents. Kennedy, who had been closely watching the entire time, saw something in him. On the last day, she confronted him directly. She pointed out how insane it was for him to think he could take down an entire terror cell on his own. Mitch, stubborn as ever, fired back that at least he tried, and now they'd never know what else he could have accomplished. Some CIA officials wanted to throw him in prison for his reckless behavior, but Kennedy had other plans. She wanted to recruit him. Mitch dismissed the idea. His only mission had been personal revenge. Kennedy didn't flinch. She told him plainly, he could either rot in prison or he could work for her. Those were his only two choices. Kennedy later presented her findings to CIA Director Stansfield. He was skeptical. Mitch was reckless, impulsive, and hard to control. Even worse, the leader of their covert black ops group, Orion, a tough ex-Navy SEAL named Hurley, already didn't like Mitch's psychological profile. Still, Kennedy was convinced Mitch was exactly the kind of raw, unpredictable talent she needed. Stansfield reluctantly gave her the green light, though he wasn't betting on her success. While all of this was unfolding, another crisis was brewing. Intelligence came in that plutonium had gone missing from a decommissioned Russian nuclear site. The possibility of nuclear material falling into the wrong hands sent alarm bells ringing across the agency. Kennedy was told to stay on standby. Soon after, she personally escorted Mitch to Orion's training compound, hidden deep in the woods. Along the way, she briefed him on Hurley, explaining how he had once served with her father and was as tough as they came. When they arrived, Hurley didn't waste time showing his disdain. He didn't think much of Mitch and wondered what a civilian with a vendetta was doing in a place like Orion. Mitch, however, wasn't intimidated. He challenged Hurley directly, saying if the man doubted him, he should test his combat skills. Hurley, hiding a flicker of respect, brushed it off and had one of his men show Mitch to his quarters. The next morning, training began in earnest. Hurley first demonstrated his own skills against Mitch before pairing him up with another recruit named Victor. The sparring session quickly turned into a brutal brawl. Hurley used the fight as a teaching moment, reminding everyone that as operatives, they weren't supposed to exist. If captured, their only real option was death. Meanwhile, far from the training grounds, Kennedy and Stansfield were sitting down in London with Iranian officials. U.S. intelligence had suggested the stolen plutonium was making its way to Iran. But the officials denied everything, claiming Iran would never break its nuclear deal with the U.S. Defense Minister Bars was especially insistent. The meeting ended without progress, and afterward, Stansfield confided to Kennedy that he didn't trust a single word the Iranians had said. He instructed her to prepare Orion for what was coming. Back at the compound, Mitch and the other recruits faced a new challenge, a virtual combat simulation. They were tasked with memorizing targets' faces, identifying friend from foe, and dealing with electric shocks whenever they failed. Kennedy watched closely as the simulation started. Hurley, eager to push Mitch, inserted Al-Mansur's face into the program. Without hesitation, Mitch shot it and got shocked for killing a non-target. The test continued, and while other recruits quickly tapped out from the pain, Mitch gritted his teeth, endured shock after shock, and kept firing even while on his knees. Kennedy saw what she had hoped for. A man who refused to quit no matter the cost. Elsewhere in Poland, the stolen plutonium had become the centerpiece of a deadly arms deal. A group of men huddled in a van, ready to transfer the nuclear material in exchange for money. Just as the deal was about to go down, two cops knocked on the window, asking them to move the vehicle. Suspicion grew quickly, and when the officers pushed further, the buyer snapped. He drew his weapon and gunned down both police officers, then turned his gun on the sellers, killing them too. He stormed out of the van, blasting at anyone in his path before vanishing into the chaos, leaving behind bodies and panic in the streets. The news about the shootout overseas spread quickly, and when Hurley caught the broadcast, his face went stiff. He recognized the shooter right away, a ghost from the past he thought was buried long ago. That recognition unsettled him, though he didn't show much. Meanwhile, Orion's training program had been stripped down to just two recruits, Mitch and Victor. With everyone else washed out or dead, these two were thrown into a simulation inside a fake convenience store. The mission was simple: spot and eliminate the hidden target. Victor spotted the target first, but Mitch backed him up, providing cover and dropping another enemy who'd been disguised as a civilian. Their teamwork was rough but effective. Later, Kennedy called Hurley into a briefing about the missing plutonium, showing him a still image from the shootout. Hurley asked if she recognized the shooter. Kennedy froze. She knew that man. Years earlier, he'd supposedly been killed in a drone strike. His real name wasn't mentioned, but within Orion, he was known as Ghost. And now he was back, alive, dangerous, and carrying a vendetta. Adding to the mess, Kennedy shared intel that a Turkish arms dealer named Hami Sharif had gotten his hands on a nuclear trigger device. If Ghost and Sharif were working together, that meant a weapon could be built. Kennedy pushed hard to deploy Orion to Istanbul, insisting Mitch should be on the team despite Hurley's doubts. Before departure, Hurley called Mitch into his office. Without warning, he played a video Mitch had recorded during the Spain attack, the same one where Katrina was killed. Mitch erupted with anger, demanding he turn it off, but Hurley was ice cold. He told Mitch flat out that his emotions didn't matter. When Mitch lashed out at him physically, Hurley nearly choked him unconscious before tossing him aside like a rag doll. His warning was clear: emotions cloud judgment, and in this line of work, hesitation or anger gets people killed. Despite the tension, Hurley, Mitch, and Victor flew into Turkey, where they linked up with a local CIA asset named Annika. Hurley briefed them about Sharif, assigning Mitch to lookout duty with Annika while Victor handled lead responsibilities. Mitch wasn't thrilled, but he kept his mouth shut. During surveillance, Mitch and Annika spotted Sheriff meeting with his assistant. Mitch, ignoring Hurley's orders, decided to improvise. He deliberately bumped into the assistant, swiping his phone in the process. It was a risky move, but gave the team a valuable lead. Even so, Hurley tore into him afterward for going off script, reminding Mitch that one slip-up could blow everything. After decrypting the phone, they discovered Sheriff had scheduled a lunch meeting the next day. Hurley put Victor in charge of the op and kept Mitch on backup with Annika. When Sheriff arrived at the restaurant with several armed guards, Hurley created a distraction by ambushing one of the soldiers, forcing him at knife point to make a fake bomb threat across town. As expected, the other guards cleared out to deal with the call, giving the team an opening. Victor and Mitch advanced toward the restaurant, but Sheriff's buyer immediately pegged Victor as suspicious. Before Victor could react, the buyer shot him dead and opened fire on the restaurant. Mitch returned fire, chaos erupted, and Sheriff escaped into mayhem. Mitch chased him to his apartment complex, breaking inside and finding himself hunted by guard dogs. Thinking fast, he locked himself in a car, tricked the dogs inside, and sealed them off. He then fought Sheriff's bodyguard in a brutal brawl, eventually killing him, before barging into Sheriff's room and putting him down without hesitation. Mitch grabbed Sheriff's laptop and got out. Back at the safe house, Hurley tore Mitch apart for ignoring orders, but Kennedy defended him. She argued that while Mitch was reckless, he was effective, and that was exactly what they needed. Hurley showed her the latest intel. Ghost was still on the move, now armed with the trigger device. Hurley swore he'd kill the man himself, feeling responsible for what Ghost had become. Analysis of Sheriff's laptop revealed a $2 million transfer connected to Rome. The trail led them straight to Iranian Defense Minister Bars. In Rome, Bars's convoy traveled to a heavily guarded facility where Ghost was waiting for him underground. The truth was revealed. Bars wasn't just aware of Ghost's mission. He was Ghost's employer. Together, they planned to pick up a nuclear physicist to complete the weapon. Hurley, Mitch, and Annika arrived in Rome shortly after. Mitch, still haunted by Victor's death, pressed Hurley for answers about Ghost, but Hurley brushed him off, labeling Ghost nothing more than a bad guy. Annika worked her CIA contacts, confirming that once the physicist collected his payment from a bank, they'd be able to track him. Soon enough, they followed the man back to his hotel. Mitch and Annika booked the room next door and wired in a video feed to keep watch. Mitch stared at the feed, hyper-focused, until Annika broke the silence by asking about his feelings. The distraction cost them dearly. He didn't notice when Ghost's men slipped into the physicist's room. The feed was spotted and chaos erupted. Mitch shot one intruder, but Annika was taken hostage. Hurley, waiting outside in the car, sensed something was wrong and stormed inside. A firefight broke out. Ghost managed to escape again, but Mitch and Annika fought their way clear. Hurley cornered the physicist trying to flee and captured him alive. At a hidden location, Hurley began interrogating the scientist, demanding the bomb's location. Mitch wanted answers about Ghost, but was ignored. Hurley reminded him that personal questions didn't matter. The mission came first. Later, Annika helped patch Mitch up in a hotel room. She urged him to rest, promising they'd deal with Ghost tomorrow. But Mitch, paranoid, started questioning her. How did she know Ghost's name? Who was she really working for? Annika swore she was CIA, but Mitch didn't believe it. He snapped, attacking her and holding her underwater in the bathtub until she confessed nothing. Eventually, her cover was blown. Annika wasn't just CIA. She was working for Iranian intelligence. Hurley decided to confront her handler directly, telling Mitch to cover for him with Kennedy. The handler turned out to be Annika's uncle, Ashen, and an old ally of Hurley's. Ashen revealed that Bars and his general, Rami, had hired Ghost to build a nuclear device. He also confirmed that Ghost had demanded an Iranian physicist to replace the one Orion had captured. But before the meeting could go further, Ghost struck. Ashen was killed, and Hurley took a bullet to the leg. When Kennedy later arrived at the safe house, she was told Ashen was dead. Mitch pushed to go after Hurley, but Kennedy refused, ordering him to stand down. As Annika was being led away by CIA agents, Mitch grabbed her phone and took off on his own. He ambushed the CIA transport, killed the driver, and told Annika her uncle was dead and Hurley had been taken by Ghost. Meanwhile, Ghost had Hurley strapped inside a secret nuclear lab. One of Hurley's arms was pinned in a vise, the other tied above his head. Ghost revealed the scars left behind from years of torture, scars he blamed on Hurley abandoning him during a mission. He ranted about betrayal, about how Hurley had chosen other agents over him. Hurley fired back, saying Ghost's insubordination had endangered 10 lives. The torture that followed was brutal. Ghost ripped off Hurley's fingernails, demanding to know where Mitch was. Hurley refused, mocking him, even claiming Mitch was the better operative. Ghost seethed, yanking another nail and cutting deep into Hurley's chest before sealing the wound with a blowtorch. Hurley, bloodied and broken, still wouldn't betray Mitch. When Ghost leaned close, Hurley bit a chunk out of his ear. As this was happening, Bars received word that the nuclear bomb had been primed. But before anyone could celebrate, Ghost turned his gun on Bars's men, mowing them down without hesitation. Hurley begged Ghost to end him as well, but Ghost had other plans. He wanted Hurley alive, forced to witness the destruction he was about to unleash. Mitch and Annika finally reached the hidden facility, moving quietly with weapons drawn. The tunnel stretched ahead, dark and suffocating, until they came up against a locked gate. It was clear Mitch couldn't squeeze through, but Annika could. Without hesitation, he handed her his gun, telling her to push forward alone. As she slipped inside, 3 armed men started walking down the tunnel toward Mitch. Thinking fast, he pulled himself up and clung to the ceiling pipes, letting the guards pass beneath him. Annika crept deeper into the lab until she stumbled upon a bloodied and barely breathing Bars. The Iranian minister begged for help, his words slurred with pain. But Annika saw only the man responsible for her uncle's death. Her anger took over. Instead of showing mercy, she shot him dead. The sound echoed like a thunderclap, instantly alerting the compound. Mitch heard the commotion and sprinted back to their car. With no time to waste, he slammed his foot on the gas, charging straight down the tunnel. The vehicle plowed into the 3 gunmen, crushing them before smashing through the gate. But the walls were too tight. The car jammed, causing a fiery explosion. Inside the wreckage, Mitch clawed his way to Hurley, who was bruised, bloodied, and barely holding on. Hurley forced out one command: "Forget him, stop Ghost." The nuke was already armed. Mitch, exhausted but fueled by rage, grabbed his weapon and went hunting. He found Ghost holding a gun to Annika's head. Annika looked at Mitch one last time and whispered that she just wanted to see her family again. Before Ghost could react, she grabbed his weapon and turned it on herself. The shot ended her life instantly, leaving Mitch shaken but determined. Ghost fled to the docks, boarding a boat already powering into open water. Mitch sprinted and leapt onto the vessel as it passed, crashing hard onto the deck. The 2 men collided in a vicious, wave-tossed fight. Ghost mocked Mitch relentlessly, sneering about Katrina's death and calling him a failure. He gained the upper hand, pressing a blade toward Mitch's chest. Summoning every ounce of strength, Mitch caught the knife with his bare hand, reversed it, and drove it into Ghost, ending him for good. Meanwhile, Hurley was airlifted out and linked up with Kennedy. Together, they realized Ghost's target was the U.S. 6th Fleet. As warships scrambled for defense, Mitch seized the controls of the boat. Hurley, refusing to abandon him, ordered his chopper closer and told Mitch to dump the bomb overboard. Mitch hurled it into the sea just before Navy fire rained down. The detonation ripped the ocean apart, forming a massive sinkhole and towering mushroom cloud. The shockwave battered the fleet and sent Hurley's helicopter spinning, though the pilot barely managed to stabilize. Later, back in recovery, Hurley joked Mitch shouldn't get used to being saved. Weeks passed. In Dubai, Hurley healed while Kennedy followed the fallout on the news. General Rami, pinning the nuclear chaos on the CIA, was now positioned as Iran's next president. But there was one problem: Mitch had vanished. That night, Rami and his entourage entered an elevator. The door slid shut, and waiting inside, calm and silent, was Mitch Rapp, already poised to finish what he'd started.